twin sister of Errol Lindsay. Whatever your name is, Satan. I'm mad. This is how you act when you are out of control. I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you, motherfucker. I hate you. This is out of control. Don't fuck with me, Jeffrey. I'll kill you. God damn it. Look at me, motherfucker. I can kill you.
What's your name, fast?
I can kill you.
Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was the first of two sons born to Lionel and Joyce Dahmer. As a child, Dahmer was reportedly energetic and happy, but became withdrawn and isolated as he grew older. His fascination with dead animals began in his early years, as he collected roadkill and dissected them, displaying early signs of macabre interests. During his teenage years, Dahmer struggled with alcoholism, which would become a lifelong problem. He also began to recognize his attraction to men but felt conflicted due to societal and personal pressures. His behavior became more erratic after his parents' divorce in 1978. Just weeks after graduating high school in June 1978, Dahmer committed his first murder. He picked up a hitchhiker, 18-year-old Stephen Hicks, and took him to his parents' home. When Hicks attempted to leave, Dahmer bludgeoned him with a dumbbell and strangled him. He later dismembered the body and disposed of the remains in the woods. Following the murder, Dahmer briefly attended Ohio State University before dropping out due to poor grades and drinking problems. In 1979, he enlisted in the U.S. Army but was discharged in 1981 due to his alcoholism. In the late 1980s, Dahmer's crimes escalated. He moved to Milwaukee and began frequenting gay bars, luring young men back to his apartment. His method involved drugging his victims, sexually assaulting them, and eventually killing them. He then dismembered their bodies, sometimes keeping body parts as trophies, engaging in necrophilia, and even consuming portions of their flesh. His apartment became a gruesome crime scene, filled with preserved skulls, body parts, and a large blue drum filled with acid for dissolving remains. He kept Polaroid photographs of his victims at various stages of dismemberment. On July 22, 1991, Dahmer's reign of terror ended when Tracy Edwards, a potential victim, escaped from his apartment and flagged down police. Authorities discovered horrifying evidence inside Dahmer's home, including photographs of dismembered bodies, human remains, and skulls. Dahmer was arrested and eventually confessed to 17 murders. He provided chilling details about his crimes, admitting to necrophilia and cannibalism.
I swear all the testimony you're about to give this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated. Then, sir, would you tell us your name and spell your last name for us?
Tracy Edwards, Edwards.
Mr. Edwards, you're going to ask you to speak up very loudly into the microphone. I would like to know, in what state do you reside at the present time?
Louisiana.
And how old are you, sir?
32.
32? And you are single?
Yes.
You were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on July the 22nd, 1991?
Yes.
And at or about that time, on that late afternoon, did you have occasion to see a person that you knew at that time or subsequently learned was a fellow by the name of Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes.
And you know that Mr. Dahmer you're speaking about is the defendant in this case to my right, correct?
Yes.
And that made a record show the identification.
Sir, would you indicate where Mr. Dahmer is seated in the courtroom?
It's over there.
Right in the middle between my two associates?
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
The record should reflect the defendant's been identified.
Now, Mr. Edwards, you and I met for the first time last evening.
Yes.
And you came up from Louisiana at my request with your attorney.
Right.
Mr. Syed, S-Y-E-D, Salet, S-A-L-E-T.
That's correct.
And you came up here to testify to the events, as you recall them, that occurred on the late afternoon, early evening, early morning hours of July the 22nd and the morning of July the 23rd, 1991.
That's correct.
Your name is known to the jury because there has been testimony concerning what happened to you and at the apartment of Mr. Dahmer. Do you understand?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Where did you know Mr. Dahmer by name prior to that date?
I've seen him a couple of times before then. I didn't know his name personally.
All right. Did you ever talk to him before that date?
I was speaking to him, saying hello as he passed by. Yeah.
Just casual, friendly?
Casual, yeah, friendly.
Hellos.
Hellos, yeah.
Where was it that you saw him in the late afternoon, early morning hours of July the 22nd?
Grand Avenue Mall.
And that was in Milwaukee,
Correct.
downtown on Wisconsin Avenue.
Wisconsin, correct.
Were you with somebody or were you alone?
A couple of her friends, yeah.
Edwards recounted how he met Dahmer that evening when the latter invited him and two friends to his apartment for drinks and to watch a movie. Though his friends declined, Edwards accepted and accompanied Dahmer to his apartment. Upon arrival, he noticed a foul odor but did not immediately suspect anything sinister.
Okay, so the record is absolutely clear. You are not a homosexual, are you?
No, not at all.
Okay. So you were with a couple of your buddies, were you?
That's correct.
And what were you doing?
We was drinking beer, just talking, hanging out, you know.
About 6 o'clock at night, was this?
Yeah, about 6:15, whatever.
Did you have occasion then to see Mr. Dahmer?
Yeah, he approached us eventually and started talking to us, yeah.
Were you three black males?
Yeah, one white, two black male.
Okay, so you're friends.
Yeah, my best friend was white, yeah.
When he came up and started talking to you, what is it that Mr. Dahmer said to you?
He said he was just in the city from Chicago. He was taking care of her sick grandmother, I believe, in West Allis. Yeah.
And did he have any further conversation with you and your friends?
Yeah, he was just talking. He said he was a professional photographer. He usually pays people for pictures and stuff like that if anybody was interested in making money at that time.
To have to pose for pictures?
Yeah.
Did he describe the kind of pictures that you were going to be posing for if you chose to take him up on the offer?
He said nude.
Nude.
Right.
Now, after he said that to you, what did you and your friends do?
They were just talking, discussing it, you know, seeing what was going on, you know.
And what did you end up doing? Did you remain at Grand Avenue or did you go somewhere else?
We proceeded from there. He said he was going to buy all his guys beer, rum, and Coke, you know, watch videos or something like that.
Rum and Coke, did you say?
Yeah, we went to the liquor store on Wisconsin Avenue, 7th and Wisconsin Avenue.
So you walked from Grand Avenue down to 7th and Wisconsin? It was going to be the three of you and Mr. Dahmer were going to stay together, or was it agreed upon that one or others of you were going to go with Mr. Dahmer, or was there no agreement?
They were going to meet up with us eventually later on that evening. Yeah.
Meet up with who?
Jeffrey at his apartment, but he gave them the wrong address at that time.
At the time that you were walking with him towards his apartment, what was your plans on doing when you got to the apartment?
Really drinking the beer, I wasn't really sure if I was going to pose or not, you know. Yep, I wasn't really sure at that point. No.
You at least were contemplating maybe you would.
Well, yeah, I was going to make up my mind once I got there, whatever, you know.
Were you in need of money?
Yeah, I just started working, and the offer sounded good at that time.
Okay. Now, when you got to his apartment, how was he acting? Tell us about his... tell me about his demeanor. You know what I mean by that, Mr. Edwards?
Yes,
How was he
I understand.
acting?
Just like a normal, everyday person, you know, friendly, good conversationalist. He was talking about the military, things of that nature, yeah.
Had you been in the military?
My father retired in the Air Force, so I've been to several different bases. I was born on an Army base in Fort Carson.
And that's the kind of thing you were talking to him
It's
about.
like a family thing, you know, so I know a lot about it.
Had he been drinking alcohol?
Yeah, I consumed some. He was drinking beer at the time when I first
Well,
met.
the time that you were like going to his apartment, was he intoxicated?
No.
Had he been drinking?
Yeah, I've been drinking a couple of beers.
How about you? Were you intoxicated?
No, not at all.
Had you had something to drink?
I sipped maybe a little beer, my friend's beer, that was it. Yeah.
All right, now you get to the apartment. Do you go in the back way?
Yes, correct.
You went up to the apartment. Tell us what happens when you get up to the apartment. Tell us what you observed, what your senses told you.
Okay, first of all, it seemed like a normal apartment. When we got inside, he turned off burglar alarms. I asked him why. First, it was a foul odor, okay?
Tell us about that. What kind of an odor
It was just like an odor. I didn't quite know what it was. You know, he told me a sewer pipe had broke and management would take care of it. You know.
And did you accept that?
Yes, because I worked around at construction companies before, and when pipes bust, sewer pipes bust, they smell, you know.
Okay.
So I brought that.
Edwards testified that after a brief conversation, Dahmer handed him a drink. He took a sip but soon felt lightheaded. Dahmer then put a movie on which Edwards later identified as The Exorcist 3. As the movie played, Dahmer's demeanor started to shift. He was chanting and rocking back and forth. His mood kept changing. Sometimes he seemed calm, then other times he got angry or spaced out, Edwards told the court. Then, without warning, Dahmer placed a handcuff on one of Edwards' wrists and pulled out a large knife. I said, "What's going on?" And he told me, "I'm going to have to cuff you or I'm going to have to hurt you," Edwards recalled. At that moment, I knew I had to stay calm if I wanted to survive.
Your first thing you did was notice the odor. He opened the door to the apartment?
Yes,
And you walked in.
yes.
He turned off something. What did he turn off?
Alarms.
Did you ask him about that?
Yeah, and he said the part of the neighborhood he was in, he was protecting his property, things like that, cameras, VCRs, TVs, things of that nature.
Did you accept that?
Yes, I studied talking and everything, you know.
General talk?
General talk. Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah, then I was just, I don't know, getting a little agitated maybe, you know, because of the smell and things. And then he threw my conversation off talking about the fish in the fish tank, you know.
Okay, when you start talking about the fish in the fish tank, do you bring that up or does he?
He does.
And what do you do when he does that?
I turn to the right, like the fish tank is here, I'm turning all the way over here.
You turn to your right to look at it?
To look at the fish tank, right.
And when that happens, what happens to you?
All of a sudden a handcuff and a knife is pulled on me. Yeah.
Handcuff is placed on your body? Where?
On my left wrist.
And you see a knife.
Yeah, the knife, yeah.
Now, at that moment, what do you do?
First I feel fear, then I ask him what's going on, you know. This is not necessary, you know, to pull a knife on me at that
Are you
point.
afraid?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to know why he did that?
None whatsoever.
Did you have any idea at that time it was going to happen?
No.
Tell me about his demeanor at that time when you looked and realized he had a knife and you in a cuff. You were only cuffed on one wrist.
One wrist, yeah.
What was happening to the other part of the handcuff?
Okay, he had it in his hand.
He was holding it.
Holding that in the wrist, yeah.
Where was the knife? In the other hand?
The knife was like he had here, the knife was in his hand, he had it on me like this.
Let the record reflect he was holding the knife in his right hand as he showed it, holding the cuff in his left hand. Is that right?
Okay.
For
then we just
hours,
studied-
Dahmer held Edwards captive, forcing him to sit beside him on the bed. He placed his head on Edwards' chest and murmured eerie words. "He told me he wanted to eat my heart," Edwards said, his voice shaking in court. That's when I realized this wasn't just about robbery or assault. He was going to kill me. Throughout the ordeal, Dahmer kept switching between calm and violent states. At times, he would lay his head on Edwards' chest, listening to his heartbeat. Other times, he would press the knife against him, warning him not to try anything. Edwards knew he had to act carefully. I tried to keep him talking, telling him I was his friend, that I wasn't going to run, he explained. He pretended to be cooperative, nodding along with Dahmer's bizarre conversations while scanning the room for a chance to escape.
And your left hand is cuffed.
Yeah, right.
Where do you have the knife? What kind of a knife was it?
It was like a military knife, a machete of some type. You know, he had it lowered right up under my rib cage, you know. Like
So
in
he
the
had
back, somewhere in the back here.
You had it pointed at your rib cage.
Yeah.
Did you feel it? Touch
Yeah,
it?
he had it on me. He had it against
Guide
me.
you back with the cuff and the knife?
Yeah, right.
And you go into the bedroom.
Right.
What do you see in the bedroom?
A big, about 50, 60 gallon drum barrel, whatever.
Do you ever see a 50, 60 drum barrel in anybody's bedroom
No.
before? Okay, did you and he move off of the bed at any time?
Yes, he wanted me to lay flat down, stomach down on the floor at that time.
Did you at any time go to the bathroom, use the washroom, prior to the time that he asked you to lay down on the floor?
No.
All right, tell us what happened how did that happen that he told you to lay down on the floor?
You know, he told me to lay down face down, put both of my hands behind my back because he got He changed again at that point, like he got more aggressive at that time.
Okay, now, but tell us, did he still have the knife out?
Yes, he still had the knife with him.
And what did you do?
Okay, I kind of like laid on my sides. For some reason, I guess God told me not to lay flat down or let this person handcuff me, so I didn't.
So you were trying to stop that from happening, but you got
Right.
down on the floor.
Right.
What did he do?
He kind of laid across me, put his head across my chest at that point.
And what was he doing with his head?
Pardon me?
What did it appear to you he was doing with his head? What was he trying to do?
Like he was listening to my heart, because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point.
He said he was going to eat your heart?
Yes, that's correct.
Did he still have the knife?
Yeah.
Where was the knife pointed?
When I was on the floor, he had it pointed at my groin area at that time.
After nearly 5 hours in the apartment, Edwards saw an opportunity. Dahmer briefly let his guard down, allowing Edwards to ask if they could go into the living room where there was more space. As they moved, Edwards waited for the right moment. When I saw that he wasn't holding the knife tightly, I knew that was my only chance, Edwards testified. Summoning all his strength, Edwards shoved Dahmer away, sprinted toward the door. He managed to unlock it and ran out into the streets, half-dressed, still wearing one handcuff. He flagged down 2 Milwaukee police officers, shouting that a crazy man had tried to kill him. The officers, noticing his distress, stopped and listened as Edwards explained that Dahmer had handcuffed him inside his apartment. He led them back to the building, unaware that they were about to uncover one of the most horrifying crime scenes in history.
And then he tells me, I told him I want to sit in the front because it's an air conditioner. I was just going to try to jump out the window or go for the door or whatever. And because the back bedroom didn't have an air conditioner, only in the front. So I suggested we sit on the couch. I had unbuttoned my shirt to try to make him feel more at ease. And then I just sat on the couch and he just started going out of himself again. Yeah.
Going out of himself?
Yeah, he was like paying me no attention at that time.
Like he wasn't there?
He started the chanting again and it's like just sitting there, And then I just, for some reason, I said, well, I need to go to the bathroom again, and he didn't follow me at that point. So I reached up, I got up, and then I hit him, and I ran out.
So you hit him?
Right.
Did you have any other belongings there?
I have my bag right there at the end of the couch. I sit in exactly the same place that I sit when I went in there.
So when you got up, he let go of your cuff to let you go to the bathroom again?
He just let me stay there. I was going to go for the window. At that point, he didn't even have the cuff. It's like I wasn't even there anymore.
And when you saw that, what'd you do?
I just seized the opportunity. I said, well, at least I'm going to die trying. I'm not just going to sit here,
What'd you do, son?
I hit him and I ran towards the door, and he was right there, tried to grab me, get me back in there.
And what happened?
Then I made it outside.
So he wasn't able to bring you back in?
Bring me back in there, no.
He tried?
He tried.
And as you left that apartment, as you got away from him, I'm going to ask you again, what impressions were made on your mind by the conduct of Jeffrey Dahmer, by the actions of Jeffrey Dahmer, by the manner, expressions, and conversations of Jeffrey Dahmer that you observed? Can you give us some words?
It's like I told the policeman that this freak, this crazy guy, was trying to hurt me,
Did you run out of the building?
Yes, I did.
Did you summon help?
Yes.
Milwaukee Police Department?
That's correct.
Did they come back there with you to the apartment?
Right.
Did you eventually go back into the apartment with the Milwaukee police officers?
Yes.
And then he was arrested.
Right.
After years of evading capture and carrying out gruesome murders, Jeffrey Dahmer finally faced justice in early 1992. His trial, held at the Milwaukee County Courthouse, was one of the most shocking and highly publicized cases in American history. Survivors, victims' families, and the entire nation watched as the Milwaukee Cannibal was brought to account for his horrific crimes. Jeffrey Dahmer was charged with 17 counts of first-degree murder, covering the brutal killings he committed between 1978 and 1991. However, one charge was later dropped due to lack of evidence, leaving him to face 16 murder counts in court. Dahmer pleaded guilty but insane to 15 of the murders. His defense argued that he suffered from severe mental illness, causing him to lose control over his actions. However, The prosecution maintained that Dahmer was fully aware of his crimes and deliberately acted on his sadistic impulses. The trial began on January 30th, 1992, and lasted for 2 weeks. On February 17th, 1992, after a trial that exposed gruesome details of Dahmer's crimes, the jury rejected his insanity plea. The judge ruled that Dahmer was legally sane at the time of his crimes and held him fully responsible for his actions. For his 15 murder convictions, he was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, a total of 957 years in prison. Later, he received an additional life sentence for a murder in Ohio, bringing his total to 16 life sentences. After sentencing, Dahmer was transferred to the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. Initially, he was kept in protective isolation due to concerns that fellow inmates might target him. However, in 1994, he was moved to the general prison population at his own request. On November 28, 1994, just 2 years after his sentencing, Dahmer was attacked and killed by fellow inmate Christopher Scarver while performing janitorial duties.
Stand right now.
Your Honor, it is over now. This has never been a case of trying to get free. I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself. This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did not for reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace. I know how much harm I have caused. I tried to do the best I could after the arrest to make amends, but no matter what I did, I could not undo the terrible harm I have caused. My attempt to help identify the remains was the best that I could do, and that was hardly anything. I feel so bad for what I did to those poor families, and I understand their rightful hate. I know I will be in prison for the rest of my life. I know that I will have to turn to God to help me get through each day. I should have stayed with God. I tried and failed and created a holocaust. Thank God there will be no more harm that I can do. I believe that only the Lord Jesus Christ can save me from my sins. I have instructed Mr. Boyle to end this matter. I do not want to contest the civil case. I've told Mr. Boyle to try and finalize them if he can. If there is ever any money, I want it to go to the victims' families. I've talked to Mr. Boyle about other things that might help ease my conscience in some way of coming up with ideas on how to make some amends to these families, and I will work with him on that. I want to return to Ohio and quickly end that matter so that I can put all of this behind me and then come right back here to do my sentence.
As to count 1, the court will impose the mandatory life sentence plus an additional 10 years on the habitual criminality. Count 2, life imprisonment plus 10 years consecutive to count 1. Count 3, life imprisonment with the date of parole eligibility 70 years from the inception of that particular sentence. I don't have all the numbers that I can't work it out, but it'll be 70 years from the beginning of that sentence, which will be consecutive to count 2. Count 4, life imprisonment with a parole eligibility to be 70 years from the commencement of that sentence, consecutive. Where am I at on the numbers? Somebody has to. What, Madam Reporter, what was the last? I should check this off on here. So last four was the last one? Okay. Count 5, life imprisonment, parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 4. Count 6, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 5. Count 7, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 6. Count 8, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 7. Count 9, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 8. Count 10, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 9. Count 11, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 10. Count 12, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 11. Count 13, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 12. Count 14, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 13. Count 15, life imprisonment with parole eligibility to be 70 years after the inception of that sentence, to be consecutive to count 14. I believe I have, and I intended to follow the recommendation of the state. I could have said something different which would have had the same impact. I really see nobody gains anything by just to say more and more years. The important point is that the sentence is structured in such a way that this defendant will never again see freedom. That is owed to this community in order to protect the community, as well as acknowledgement of the seriousness of the offenses. Those are the reasons. The sentence, of course, is to the state prison system. One thing I didn't